welcome back to the podcast. With me today, I brought on my good friend Susie Rosenberger. She is an acupuncturist who me and my husband have been seeing for the last year, I believe.
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wanted to bring you on today, Susie, because I feel like we have learned so much from you. And you've changed our lives so much by opening us up to new ideas, new modalities. And I also want to, educate my audience about acupuncture and Chinese medicine and all the things that you know about.
Good. Thanks for doing that.
Yeah. So why don't we start off with your background? How did you get into acupuncture? Yeah, how did you start practicing?
Yeah, it's actually a kind of a fun story. So I was selling medical devices to orthopedic surgeons in New York, and I was training for a triathlon, and I had tendonitis in both my IT bands. And so I kept asking them, what should I do for this? It's very painful. And they kept giving me steroid shots. And I'm like, wow, that's crazy that this is the only tool in your toolbox for tendonitis. And so, for some reason, it got in my head to try acupuncture. And when I did try acupuncture, it corrected the pain in one session. And I also found myself in a really deep dream state during the session. And it was just so fascinating to have that type of experience. And now I know that that was the theta brainwave where healing can take place. So I
Oh,
started going to acupuncture, and I quickly decided to make that my career when I saw how powerful it was.
yeah, I agree. I know I've gotten into that state before, and so has my husband, and that's like where the miracles happen.
It really is. Yeah. We can get out of our own way and let energy move in our body. So it's really good when you can drop in.
Yeah, it is. And where did you go to school at?
I went to Pacific College in San Diego.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So it was a good excuse to move to San Diego, which is what I
Yeah.
always wanted. But it happened to be a wonderful school. And the interesting thing about what I learned in school is there's so many different ways to go about acupuncture.
Okay.
So you learn lots of different styles, and some of the styles come from Japan, some come from Korea, some come from the Taoist traditions of the five elements. Some are more rooted in very traditional, like Chinese medicine. So I luckily and fortunately got exposed to a lot of really different styles and people that were in mastery of those styles, which is what, my favorite part was about this medicine. There's like a lot of different ways to do acupuncture. It's not just like one size fits all at all. It's like, you know, your practitioner is going to be very, very unique in the way that they approach this medicine. So you can't even really go into it thinking like that it's going to be the same across the board. It's just such a unique, there's just a lot of freedom in being an acupuncturist to how I approach it and how someone else approaches it, and then what transpires with our clients.
Yeah, I can agree with attest to that because I've only had you and then somebody else, but I can say that it was very different with you as opposed I felt a little medical with the first one I had.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but
It
I
can
was there to treat
vary.
pain.
Yep.
And I don't know that, if that makes a big difference, but it felt like I was, yeah, it was just all over my whole body. Um, and it felt a little medical, but with you, it feels like you're kind of tuning into me. And then, it's just different.
Yeah, I have always been more interested in the energetics versus like the mechanical structures of the body. So I base the way I approach acupuncture with really the mind body connection always, always. So I tend to try to ask every client, what's going on in your inner world right now? Like, what are your current stressors? Like, what are you grappling with? Like, what are your themes that you're working through right now? Because to me, that's so pertinent about how your body feels and what's happening in your body.
Yeah. And I think that's really important, because I don't think, in the Western medicine, um, we don't really approach that. We kind of treat everyone with a pill or a certain, therapy. But yeah, it feels very different with the holistic health. It's like you're tuning into what somebody needs, and it's going to help them.
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting because a lot of my clients have, and I don't want to knock Western medicine really ever, but it's just when it is stress and you seek Western, it's very hard to get the answers and care that you need. And there's so many stories of clients ending up in the ER thinking they're having a heart attack or a heart issue when it's really anxiety. So that's like a
Oh,
classic example of like, oh wow, my body's doing something that feels like a medical emergency. And not even realizing in that moment that it's actually just like your energy feeling so constricted that it feels that panic kicks in. So um yeah, it's just fascinating that people aren't even like that aware of what's happening in their body. That's why it's just nice to start to for anyone to start trying some different modalities involving the mind body connection, I think, because that's really where you can change how you see the world and experience the world, truly
yeah.
starting to
And
move
I
body.
notice that a lot with people is that it's almost like you make your own reality when you're having like a really emotional response, like anxiety, or you're being triggered by something, or and so maybe like,
Right.
yeah, and it's like it's not real, it's not happening, but in your mind it is very real to you.
Yeah, and sometimes your mind can't get out of that rut or can't get off that track until the
Mhm.
energy in the body moves. So sometimes it's like you're ruminating and ruminating, or like you have a problem with a person, like a family member. It's just like, oh, I can't believe they're doing that to me. And it goes
Yeah.
on and on for days sometimes. You can't really shift out of that perspective until something changes in your actual body. And so that's why it's
Yeah.
so important, this um, energy, or it's very hard to start to have different experiences, I find.
Well, yeah, and I think the biggest thing I've noticed with myself and my husband is that we're not being triggered as easily.
Yeah,
Because yeah, and it's a combination of like moving the energy and then of course working on ourselves. But I've noticed that really with my husband, he's not triggered as easily. He's able to handle these stressors, everyday stressors, a little better.
awesome. Perfect example, right? Of what we're
Yeah.
talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, so if somebody's coming in and they're not sure about acupuncture, say
Yes.
like I've never tried acupuncture and I have a lot of worries, because I've heard like it hurts, or you're gonna stick a bunch of needles in me. Oh my gosh. What do you tell that person, and who should come see you?
I don't want to put a limit on who should come because, in my humble opinion, it's appropriate for really anyone.
Yeah.
um, Even kids, I've worked on kids. I work on my own kids when they're sick, especially, and do cupping. But if someone has a phobia of needles, that's very common, and we do associate needles with vaccines and those really scary shots that we've had to get, and it's very invasive and abrupt. And so I can tell just because I try to be very grounded and present when I'm working, and I can tell when someone's not ready to have a needle put in their body. So I won't proceed until someone's ready to receive it. And so what that looks like is usually just breathing, putting my hands on their feet, grounding until they're calm and ready to start working. And sometimes, with new clients, we haven't even gotten to do needles the first session because they weren't ready. So there's never like a rush to jump into anything, because I fully understand that receiving acupuncture needles, which are as thin as a piece of hair, they're very thin, they're very flexible. it's still invasive. It's like the one modality that goes beneath the skin and works on that deeper level. So it's actually entering your space. And so I am very much like full respect of what that experience is like. That not everyone's ready for that type of like penetrating energy or that type of invasiveness in their space. So it's all about like setting a very clear intention of like, this is for your highest and best, or only if you're ready to receive and when you are ready. And I try to move slowly.
Yeah, and I love that. Your touch is so gentle, I will say.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I mean, it's hard with kids too. Um, to get them to trust and receive that kind of thing. And
That's
so
very hard. Yeah.
yeah,
Like certain ages, then they're not for a while, and then maybe they are again, and then maybe they're not. And yeah, you have to always just kind of meet them where they are. Because if they're resisting and panicking, there's no point. If someone's resisting and not ready, there's really no reason you should be working on that person.
agreed. Yeah.
I, yeah, trust me. Yeah, working on my own kids, I know when it's just not happening, and you want to because you're like, oh, you have a high fever, and this could be solved, but you're not willing, and that's okay. All
Yeah.
right.
And are now can you go through a little bit about like the different areas where you see the most people coming into you to receive
Like
acupuncture?
the type of complaints people have, or
Yeah, like is there a number one, I mean, kind of I'm sure you probably see a theme with like health and then lifestyle. Um,
it's kind of funny because things always come in waves. It's like I'll have a whole wave of clients that are coming in for sciatica, and then a
oh,
whole wave of clients coming in and they all have neck pain. So it kind of works that way sometimes. And so dealing with those different complaints, it's everybody kind of has their own root cause. It's not like the same treatment's the same for everybody.
mhm.
So I could be seeing someone with sciatica, but one person is having that because they don't feel supported and like their back is clenching up and they're not letting that flow through their butt. Um, and then you start to hold your posture funny versus someone else that maybe is like overworking, and like we live in the mountains and like maybe they're like skiing and trail running too much, and
Mhm.
it's a different pattern and it's a different root cause. So it's always kind of trying to get to the root cause,
Yeah,
and there's
I
different for
love that root cause. Yeah, that's what I've been working on lately is like really getting to the root of some of my issues. And it can be
yeah,
really, I mean, actually, I would say like some people maybe the entryway is like acupuncture, working with somebody like you, and then they go and they figure out they like, that introduces them to some new ideas for their health. Um,
yeah,
yeah, because you're not just an acupuncturist, you also like have a lot of knowledge with the herbs and
yeah,
diet and and the stars and all that stuff. So,
yeah. So herbalism is part of the acupuncture traditional Chinese medicine education. So anyone from California at least learned herbalism. So that's a whole full separate modality that's actually really powerful. Um,
yeah.
yeah. And then we also are all trained in, but the thing is that I try not to always get into diet too much because there's just so much out there. And the way Chinese medicine approaches diet is specific to Chinese medicine.
Mhm.
And so I personally try to stay out of dogma and like rigidity of like, well, this is how we do it in Chinese medicine, even though there is a very clear path that actually does intuitively make sense to me in Chinese medicine. I still
Yeah.
try to be very skillful at navigating that with certain people. some people like to try some of the things like the keto or whatever people are doing, and
Yeah.
respect to that. And then it gets tricky about meat because Chinese medicine is very into meat as being like an important aspect of the diet because it's dense, it's higher energy food, especially for women who are menstruating. It's good to nourish and tonify their blood. And so that can get kind of funny with certain, in the culture we're in now, it's like we have to respect, people's choices and what they feel is best for themselves. But
Yeah.
so
And
yeah,
I
meat
understand the
can be a
dogma.
tricky topic. So I try to kind of stay away from that unless it's so obvious, and I'm like, you would feel so much better if you ate a little bit of meat. Like
Oh,
you
yeah, and
just
that's music to my
you
ears
will.
because I thrive off of meat, eating a lot of meat. But then I
Yeah,
also see that I need to venture out a little bit and try some different like vegetables and stuff, and I do. They just don't agree with me as much. But I think you have to do your own, yeah, do your own path and figure out what works. And but not be
yeah,
dogmatic about it. I'm really against dogma.
yeah. Yeah, it's really listening to the body and not your mind of like, yeah, it's tricky, but yeah, kind of
Yeah,
have
and I'm interested in so can you explain a little bit about what is the the pathway that you were talking about with like the diet? Um with like
yeah,
I guess you were talking about like the hot and the like hot and cold, right?
yeah. So in Chinese medicine, we look at um we use the spleen channel and the spleen organ very seriously as part of the digestive function. And it's really like, oh, you're gonna take it out, it doesn't matter. Like, but it's very important in Chinese medicine, and it's more of an energetic mechanism than we are talking about the actual organ. It's like, what's the energy of this organ and what's it providing as far as the physiological functions and the energetic functions. So we look at the spleen and the stomach, and they kind of like different things. And the spleen likes things to be dry and warm, but the stomach tends to be a little bit warmer in nature and prefers a little bit more of a cooling. So it's always kind of balancing temperatures, and
Mm,
looking at the temperatures of the foods that we eat. And just for example, like you can eat a banana and feel that it's cold, like
mhm.
it's cold in your mouth. You can tell like this is cold in nature. So if you're struggling digestively and you're eating a lot of cold stuff, your spleen's not going to be happy. It wants things warm. So it's always trying to balance temperature too, of like what's cold, what's warm, what's your body need. Is it imbalanced digestively? Most people are, honestly, a
Yeah.
little weak digestively. So it's just, I try to just keep it really simple, like in my personal life, in my personal diet, and eat
Yeah.
like very simply, just to keep it easy in here.
Oh yes, I know. I've I've had so many issues, and yeah, it's like something could really throw your whole system out of whack for me anyway. And
Yeah.
it will take me like a week or so to get it in balance. Where I'm
Yeah, like
not,
sugar,
yeah,
or if you're feeling yeasty, like you have a little sugar and boom, it's like it's out of control now. Or like
yes,
you're already feeling really hot and you have like lots of hot sauce or something super spicy, then boom, you exacerbate something and you get like the heartburn. So it's always being, again, the wisdom of listening to what is right for you in that moment. It's always going to come back to that, like listening to your body and not your mind. What is
yeah,
my body?
yeah. What does our body want? And a lot
It
of people
normally
don't.
doesn't want grease or sugar, or it doesn't really want that. It's like that's a pattern that we have to like kind of work out. Like what's the comfort food, or like what's the emotional connection to why I want that. It's not really what your body wants. So it's good to have that start to build awareness too, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a good skill to, start to learn how to listen to your body.
It's everything.
It
It
is.
doesn't lie.
It doesn't, some
It'll
when you
never
start
scare you.
yeah, when you start to listen, you'll realize that your body has been screaming at you for many, many years. And the
Yeah,
reason that's why you have pain and dysfunction in your
totally.
body.
Even, yeah, it's not even just what you're eating, but like, oh, when I'm around this person, I feel open and like really relaxed. And when I'm around this person, I feel contracted. Or like, how do you feel around certain people? It's like always whispering. Like, and that's what I think one of the most rewarding things that I do at work is, for whatever reason, I work with a lot of baby boomers, people in their 60s and 70s.
Hmm.
And there's, especially the men that come through, they've never relaxed. They
Yeah.
don't even know what that means. Like, they don't even know how to sit still and like just feel, all that is around them and observe and like, oh, a bird, they cannot find that place in them. They've never been there. And so what I love is that opportunity to help drop them into a relaxed state, maybe for the first time in 20 years or whatever have you. Like, this is what it feels like to come home to yourself, like, and to feel your body and feel your essence. And so that's where I find like the most reward is kind of helping people rediscover their subtle body a little bit.
Oh,
If that
yes.
makes
I love
sense.
that. I know, like, think about like you're helping one person at a time. And then through this conversation, just talking about these kind of things, we can open people up, to the idea that it's okay to practice some mindfulness and to relax and to, yeah, take care of our bodies and drop in.
Yeah, I think that's like the most important theme in the collective space right now is like slow down. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, can you talk a little bit about the cupping? Um, the benefits of that, because that was another thing we were introduced to from you was the cupping.
Yeah.
We started doing
Yeah.
that, and it seemed to really help a lot with a lot of different things.
Yeah, I love cupping. I use it in the clinic primarily for if someone has a cold. So I do
Mm.
cupping over their lungs, and it really helps break up phlegm and get like the lungs working again and get the circulation going. So to me, it really speeds up the duration of a cold or a flu. So that's my primary go-to, especially I love it for kids because then you're not putting needles on them and they find it a little more tolerable too. So, and it also can really reduce fevers. You ever have a fever, you can buy cups online, by the way. So you can
Yeah.
do cupping over C7 for kids. It reduces their fever instant, like
Oh.
it pulls the heat right out of the body. But the mainstream mostly views cupping as like for muscle tension,
Hmm.
and it's great for that too. It's just for me, like I don't do that so much in my clinic because I prefer to recommend people to do it at home.
Hmm.
Like buy the set of pump cups. You can get like the little pump ones. You can buy them on Amazon, and you have like a friend, or you can even do them yourself. They have a little extension where you can actually put them on your own back. Because I just feel like it's something you can easily do at home, and I want to do like energy work while we're together in the clinic.
Yeah.
Um, so I turn a lot of people onto cupping, and I'm like, check it out, watch YouTube. You can do cupping. You can do it at home. You got this. Everybody. I wish everybody knew about it or used it, especially for kids. It's such a useful tool for a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it is, and it's funny because that's kind of what happened with us. Is I think you did it on my husband once, and
Hmm.
I think you did it on me once, and then you just told us about it, getting our own set, and we did, and then actually my husband started telling everybody.
To buy them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he got one of those infrared ones too.
He
And
turned
that
me on
one's
to
yeah,
them.
that one's a little different because it gets real hot.
And they're actually too strong, and that's the other thing that I find a little
Yeah.
dangerous. So if you're doing cupping at home, like they're not meant to be super, super strong. Actually, that can exhaust your energy and it could actually bruise you. And we don't want to, the markings you get, it shouldn't be a bruise. It should just be stuck blood that gets pulled up to the surface that your body then clears. So we're not supposed to be it's not a bruise when you see the marks, it's stuck blood. And there's a big
Oh.
difference. So you can easily bruise yourself if you go too hard with them. That's my only concern, because I got the ones with a dial, like you can set how strong you want them. And it's mine, ours are different. I know mine's like 0 to 12. Like a 4 is too strong. And it goes all the way to 12. I'm like, oh geez. So
Oh, jeez.
we gotta be careful. We gotta be careful. Yeah,
Oh,
you don't
I
want your
know.
cup strong.
Yeah, I had to be careful too because I did it a little too strong and I had to just like be like, no, shut it off.
Yeah,
Yeah,
then you're
but
actually injuring.
yeah, you
Yeah,
can. Yeah, so I guess, just set it on a lower setting at first
yeah,
and see
go
how you
light.
feel.
Yes, it's always our culture. We just want to go big and hard, and we want the deep tissue massage and the strong cupping, but it's not always the appropriate choice for where your body's at. Sometimes the body just needs gentle TLC, and then it finds its own balance without force.
Yeah. And then and you have what was it? You have a new product that you're selling or
Yeah, yeah,
with the mushrooms?
so yeah, I sell the mushroom tinctures. It's actually just from one of the Chinese herbal lines that I use. Because I do like the simplicity of the mushrooms. Traditional Chinese herbal medicine is super complex. Like it's insane to learn. Um,
Yeah.
and so sometimes in that complexity, it's hard to find exactly what someone needs. And I find that the mushroom tinctures are kind of more of a blanket, like this is super supportive of adrenals. And
Mhm.
so it's just kind of, I like to incorporate those as a simplistic option versus if I don't know exactly which Chinese herbal formula is right for someone, which that happens all the time. Like this is super complex, like the herbal system. So I'm not afraid to admit.
Oh
Sometimes I don't
yeah, and
know. I'm
that's
like,
why like if I want to
yeah.
take something, I ask you, I would like you, okay, what do I need? Because I don't understand any of these words. um
Yeah. Yeah. Like learning another language.
but I
Mhm.
have seen the benefits from when I have taken some of the Chinese herbs that you've recommended.
Yeah.
With yeah, it's really helped a lot. So
Sweet. Yeah. I remember which one that you like. It's a great formula. It's a classic.
yeah, I couldn't believe it, because I've been struggling with some digestive bloating and issues for a while, and then I just started to take that, and yeah, it took like maybe a week or so, but
Yep.
it was pretty powerful.
Awesome.
So they
Yeah. A week
work.
is sound. Yay.
And I love
Yeah, definitely
I love mushrooms. Um, I've always seen a good benefit with my mental health with mushrooms and,
cool.
physically too.
Awesome.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm still experimenting with them all the time too. Like, yeah, there's a lot out there right now, and it's kind of the hot thing.
yeah.
I'm into it. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I think there's a lot of benefits with mushrooms, but yeah, with anything like that, sometimes it gets like really popular and then it's overused. But I guess it's not a bad thing with mushrooms.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think we're pulling them into our consciousness for a reason. They're like, time to use us.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because even Chinese medicine has acknowledged certain mushrooms as being like very potent, like cordyceps,
Mhm.
that's been used for thousands of years in Chinese medicine. So that's nothing new for that system. They're like, yeah, obviously we know about cordyceps. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm like, oh, it's just interesting to be trained in the Chinese herbs because we only learn the herbs in their Chinese name and then
Mm.
their Latin name, not the English. So sometimes I haven't even made the connection, like, oh, that's that. Like, oh, I've studied that for years. I didn't know that was cordyceps. Okay, got it. I only know
Oh,
the Chinese
yes.
name. It's a little bit of a disconnect in the education.
Yeah. Um, and then you also use well, you're starting to do some more astrology again, right?
Yeah.
I saw that you
Yep.
launched like a new website or something.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been an astrologer for about a decade.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I just haven't been focusing on it lately, but I always loved it. And I had a conversation with a friend who's like, why don't you do chart readings anymore? I'm like, I don't know why. Let's do it.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I see a lot of people that do chart readings and it's pretty, yeah, it's pretty amazing. Yeah. And you've done, yeah, you offered to do my chart one day. I was like, "Oh, I didn't know you did that." And it was just it's spot on.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think knowing art is one of the most useful tools. And I think you have to use it with intention as a tool and realize that you always have free will, but it can offer such profound guidance, um, and show you that the painful lessons that you've had in your suffering was part of your soul evolution, and
Mhm.
hopefully bring acceptance for that and those experiences and those people that have helped create suffering. But
Yes.
it's all there. It all shows up there. It was already written, and it's interesting to realize like these energies were written, and
Yeah.
like we are just living this out, and like it's just it's fascinating. It's fascinating, the human experience to me.
It is. Yeah. It is very fascinating. I know because there's some modalities I like to kind of learn a little bit about what it says about me, but I don't want to go like too deep into it and live there. Um, but I feel
Right.
like astronomy is one of those things too, where, the planets are always moving and changing. Um, but the day that we were born and the time when we were born, they were a certain way. And it's interesting to see how we ended up.
Yeah, we picked the time of our birth intentionally, I believe, to accomplish certain evolutionary goals using the energies of those signs of the archetypes of the planets. So I think we choose to use them in a certain way to help us not have this same karmic imprints. Like, okay, I need more fire this time. Let's see if I can break these karmic patterns with all this fire or whatever have
Oh,
you.
oh, I didn't think about it that way. Yeah, that's super interesting.
That's just
Yeah.
my belief. I don't know. I just made that
Oh,
up. Take
no,
it as
no,
you
no.
will.
I think there's something in there. There's something in
Yeah.
there.
Okay. It
Def
landed. Okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, we definitely like, if you believe in reincarnation and all that, we definitely have different experiences each time. And so we're always learning and growing. So I can see how we would want to have a different, yeah, experience.
Yeah. Mhm.
And it's interesting like who we end up with too, because I didn't really look into it before. I think my husband like was talking about it. He's like, "Oh yeah, like I'm an earth sign and then I'm an air. I'm in the air, I'm in the sky. I'm very airy and he's
Yeah, you
earth."
are.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
And so I didn't even think about that before and then I started to put the pieces together. I'm like, "Oh yeah, he grounds me. He kind of brings me
Yeah.
down." And then
Yeah.
I show him a little of the above space.
Exactly. Expansiveness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Awesome.
Well, I won't keep you much longer, but what else, do you think is important with all of the work that you do?
Um, I just would like to see a world where everybody's it's a lot to ask, but that everybody's interested in evolving. And so that's all. I just feel like I use acupuncture to help people evolve on their journey, and maybe they can receive that energetic suggestion. I give them the treatment room, and maybe they can't, but that's all I'm here to support with my work. And it's really just that simple.
I love it. I'm sorry to put you on the spot. Well, and I'm so thankful to you too, because you hold a space for us, and you introduced us to singing bowls too. And so, yeah, we go to you have an event once a month, with
Mhm.
acupuncture and singing bowls. And that opened us a whole new world for, my husband. He's really into the singing bowls now, and he wants to play them, for other people. And so I really am thankful for that too.
Awesome. I'm so glad. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's really like an eclectic, great community we live in, where we have all these energetic and, holistic health, um, practitioners like you, and so many other people. So I'm really thankful for
Thank-
you.
Thanks, Rosa. You too.
And then I'm going to ask you a question that I ask all my guests.
Okay.
Um, okay, what is fueling your life force lotus flower right now?
That's easy. What's fueling my life force low slow right now is definitely the powerful lessons, healing, and clearing of karma I just received from this eclipse.
Oh,
Yeah, I was just reborn in that portal. So that's like fueling me, is this like sense of rebirth.
oh my gosh,
And,
I love
and,
that.
and the way possible. Yeah, it was big stuff. So yeah.
Yes, I have to agree. I was going through right before the eclipse, and then even last night I had another session. I was purging a lot of old energy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I felt like this need to like purge all this stuff from the past, and because I felt like it needed to get rid of it, right?
Yeah, truly, that's what it was for me too. Like, wow, I don't need to operate this way. We're doing this now. This feels fun. Like, let's do it this way now.
I love
And yeah,
that.
that portal opened and allowed us to really clear if we were open to it. And I feel like it fueled my fire, my lotus flower fire.
Yay. I'm so excited. I love that. Well, where can people find you, Susie?
In Durango, my office is on Florida by the dentist.
Yes.
And my website, DurangoAcupunctureHealth.com.
And I'm going to put everything in the show notes, and in the video here, I'll put all your links where people can
Thanks,
find you,
Rosa.
reach out. Yes. Thank you so much for coming on my podcast today.
Fun. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.